So I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's the Public Awareness Personnel Policy Committee of the Vallecitos Water District. Today is October 6, 2020. And for those of you who are listening in via teleconferencing, we much appreciate it. And for the rest of you who have just perhaps looking, you can catch how to get a hold of us via the notice to the public. I believe would like not to read it. And if we can just go ahead and start. Do I take roll here or do we just visually?
Yeah, you can, I guess it wouldn't hurt to take roll.
Okay, I'll take roll. And Mike Sinella?
Present.
Thank you. And I'm here, and that's 2, and that's all the members we allow on a committee meeting to prevent any problems with the Brown Act. We have 3 items of discussion, and the first one is participation in San Diego County Water Authority's new permanent special agricultural water rate program. I'm real excited to hear about this.
Yeah,
Glad it happened.
Chris is going to cover that item, but before he does, I'm going to suggest that, so we have 3 items. Items 1 and 3 are somewhat related, so we may want to do 1, then 3, and finish up with 2 if that is acceptable to the committee.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so Chris, why don't you jump in and talk about the PCAR program?
Okay, so the San Diego County Water Authority has provided a special agricultural water rate to certain farmer and grower customers to the district since 2008 through their transitional special agricultural water rate program. It's a separate class of service, and Vallecitos, we call it TSAR. TSAR customers receive a reduced level of service for supply reliability in exchange for the lower agricultural water rates. The TSAR program was set to expire on December 31st of 2020 this year. So, and the CWA board authorized a task force to work with CWA staff to come up with a permanent program. So the now PCAR, Permanent Special Agricultural Water Rate Program, is what they're producing. It offers VWD customers, ag customers, farmers that want to voluntarily participate in the program a lower agricultural rate tied to the reduced water level of service like I talked about before. This program will begin on January 1st of 2021. We currently have about 117 agricultural water customers in our service area. Most of them are the TSAR participants, but we also have VWDs, certified non-participating agricultural water rate. And some of our customers have both types of accounts. They have like one TSAR account and one certified non-participating account. A lot of times to kind of split their differences and hedge their bets, I would say. As a discussion item, unlike TSAR, which required customers to be in and enrolled in MWD's old interim agricultural water program, which had a date that they had to be enrolled in it, January 1st of 2009, in order to participate. With this new program, new and existing customers can get into PCAR. So that used to be a restriction. If you weren't in TSAR, you couldn't get in. But now with the PCAR program, if you want to start out and have an agricultural business, you can join the program if you can meet all the requirements. Another interesting thing about PCAR is there's no minimum acreage requirement. That was part of the TSAR program, where you had to have 1 acre fully planted as a program minimum. You needed a full acre, but that's not a requirement anymore. And that's probably good in that there's certain types of growing efforts that may not require a full acre, some of the hydroponics and things like that. So that's good. For this new program, the eligibility is based on the customer needs to grow or raise for commercial purposes products of an agricultural, floricultural, or horticultural nature, and will be required to verify that the customers are eligible, but they have to get on 4, I'm going to hold up my hand here, 4 distinct lists that the Water Authority has researched and found them to be okay. If you're part of one of these 4 programs, you're a legitimate agricultural customer. So one of them is the Regional Board's General Agricultural Orders Enrollment List. And when I say regional board, I'm talking about the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And they have requirements that customers don't have discharge of pollutants off their property, fertilizers and so forth. So if you're on that list, you can be one of these ag customers. I forgot to mention President Evans and Vice President Sinella. This is regional, so this is for customers besides Vallecitos as well. One of the other lists you need to be on is a growers list. It's an inventory of agricultural operators with the County of San Diego, and they've been assigned a specific number to be able to use pesticides to keep insects and other vectors from harming their growers. So that's another list available. If you're on that list, you have access to the ag water. The third one is active certified producers, and that's a farmer that's been certified by the San Diego County's Department of Agricultural Weights and Measures. So another entity that keeps track of agricultural customers. And then finally, the 4th list is organic producers, and that list is maintained by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So there's kind of these 4 lists, and if you're on one of those 4, you're basically good to go to get this agricultural water rate. So to have a smooth transition, it takes place on January 1st of 2021. But basically, the Water Authority is going to allow a 6-month transition period where our current existing TSAR customers will get enrolled in the PCAR program, but then they're going to have to make the effort to get on one of those 4 lists that I just spoke about. And if they can get on those lists by within 6 months, so by June 30th of 2021, they'll be able to continue to keep the ag water. But there may be customers that can't, that aren't a real viable ag operation, and they can't get on those lists. They won't have access to the ag water rate anymore, and they'll have to be moved into a different category at that point. The Water Authority has an enrollment form that customers will have to fill out and send into the district, and then we will verify using the APN number and those lists to make sure that they've met those requirements. Vice President Snell, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. We need like a little raise hand button for this Zoom stuff. Hey, before you got too far past that point you just made, do we have any indication yet how many current participating ag customers that we have within VWD who may be impacted by or is it too soon to say?
It's too soon to say because I haven't reached out to them at this point. The board does have to approve of the program. Theoretically, the board could say, we don't want to participate. I imagine there would be some torches and pitchforks, maybe. I don't know the right word, but if there would be people that would be upset if the district didn't participate in the ag program. So the board does need to approve participation. And once that happens, I'll be able to reach out to those customers and explain the program requirements.
When you said there'd be people that wouldn't be happy, are you referring to ag customers currently, or are you referring to people down at the Water Authority? Who's the people that won't be happy?
If we were to not participate in this program and not offer an ag rate to our customers, I'm certain that those customers that currently get the ag rate would be unhappy.
I got you.
Yeah. I'm hoping I'm making sense with that.
Let me reverse the question a little, and it's a good question. So when we look at what we have, and I forgot, you said we had 100 and some.
About 117 or something like that.
And I know we've had some who've inquired and we weren't able to help them because of that 2009 restriction, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Do you anticipate an increase of even a small percentage, that there's people waiting to get in, that this gives them the opportunity? And are you familiar with people asking about that? I guess is what I'm asking you.
Exactly, President Evans. And I have a list of about 15 customers that have wanted to get into the program and just haven't been able to. Now, whether they, are continuing that, there's been people that bought a property and were thinking about it, but, without being able to enter it, they may have changed the way they were going to do their landscaping or whatever. So once it becomes effective, I think there will be some customers that'll want to join in. I think it'll probably be less than 15. We also, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but there are customers where you're supposed to be a legitimate agricultural business, and sometimes that's open to speculation. And this makes it much easier. If you're on these lists, you can participate, and it doesn't leave me in the uncomfortable situation of going out and inspecting a property and trying to decide whether they have a legitimate ag operation or not.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
Go ahead, Mike.
I like how it's a cleaner, more defined definition as to who qualifies and who doesn't. That I think that does take a lot of the messiness away from it. Hey, remind me how does it work logistically? So if we enter into this program, let's say, and we have, I don't know, let's just to keep a round number, 100 customers that qualify and they participate, and they're getting the water at a reduced rate, I assume. And then so is that burdened by Vallecitos, or is that water coming in is there like a discounted rate from the water authority for that water? How does it all work?
Correct. Essentially, we are just passing along the water authority's rate to the customer. So the customer benefits by our passing it through and the water authority offering the reduced rate on the water.
Okay, and so then these accounts will be metered, and we'll track them individually, and then we'll basically submit on a monthly or biannually basis or whatever it is to the water authority that they purchased this much water, and there'd be some sort of
there's
reconcilable
reconciliation.
process.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
I'm going to continue if that's okay.
Yep. Thanks.
So there's some interesting things about entering and exiting the program. So if you enter the PCAR program, you're able to be in it. But if you decide that you want to opt out of it, you're worried about a drought, and there's consequences in times of drought. If there's a drought, you need to cut back by whatever percentage the drought reduction requires. So if the water authority wants a 20% reduction, you've got to reduce your consumption by 20%. So there's consequences for the ability to get this less expensive agricultural water. But if you decide you want to opt out of the program, you can't get back in the program unless the property's been sold in a arm's length transaction to a different owner. So you get one chance to get in it, and sort of you only get one chance to get out of it. You don't get to jump in and out based on, well, the drought's over now I want it back again. So it was the same thing with TSAR, where you either you were in or you were out, and so that kind of carries forward. What is that? I did make the comment about the it removes myself from having to review a customer's property and see if it's legitimate as an ag customer. And typically the requirement was that a customer was a business with business receipts and so forth. And, those weren't always being able to be easily produced, but they could come up with a sheet from the local church that said they donated the fruit or whatever. So it just gets us out of the messiness of being an arbiter or a judge or an investigator of it. If you're legitimate and you can get on one of these lists, you can get the water. And if you can't, well, make a more concerted effort, and you can. Fiscal impacts, financial impacts, it's really hard to tell. I don't think there's going to be any changes much in particular. I think if we have 15 people enter it, I think we may have 15 people that leave it. I think it'll come out in the laundry as a wash. And important to remember that we don't subsidize anything with this PCAR water. We're simply allowing customers to have access to the program via the CWA. And just as a recommendation, I would recommend we participate in the program.
Well,
And that concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you, Chris. I was going to say, I recommend we support it as well. And my feelings on it are, whether it increases the number of people we provide to or it doesn't, I think the three most essential things is, one, we're able to say it's permanent. So if someone comes in and chooses to try this, they know they have a long time in which to develop their business or their desire, where with the other one, it was never for certain. It could change on you. And that would be really difficult if you moved in and then 3 years later were told, I'm sorry, that's done. So I appreciate that, the permanency of it. I like the fact that it's gives you 4 ways of qualifying, and they're independent of Vallecitos itself in the substantiating it, because I think it helps for those people who don't understand it at the time. You can understand by qualifying this way, we're not playing any favors. We're not being lenient on someone because we don't know for sure. It's very, very delineated. And that, therefore, I think we should, as an agency, feel comfortable with those people that are on it and the benefits of the discount they're getting, as long as they understand completely that there's two caveats. And one is that when there's a drought or a need to take the water away, it's very clear that they need to do it. And secondly, that, oh, I just forgot what it was. Well, there you go. You forget it. No. So, no, it's that they lose their water. Oh, yes, Mike.
They can't jump. Yeah, I think what you're saying is they can't jump back in and out.
Yes, they can't jump out. They just can't jump out. You have to give some real serious thought to that. And I appreciate that, because I honestly believe any of one person who goes in agriculture needs to be serious about it, and we need to treat it seriously. So I personally am very pleased with it. It's not perfect for everyone, but I think it's perfect for the great majority and resolves a lot of issues. I'm sorry, Mike, I kind of stepped all over you. Did you like to add something?
Not too much. First off, I agree with everything that President Evans just said. I think she articulated it very well. And I'm not in agriculture in any way, and not that familiar with our ag customers, given the part of the city that I live in. But so I just don't know how many people might be positively or negatively impacted by the change. But I do think that the fact that this new program is permanent, like President Evans said, and it really does give some clear definition as to who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. And it kind of takes that guesswork out of our hands. I think that makes it all worth it. And I think I'd be supportive of moving it forward as well.
So do you need anything else comment-wise or questions?
No, I don't think so. So the next step would be to take this to the board to see if the board wants to approve the PCAR program. And we just wanted to make sure we checked with the committee or the policy committee to see, solicit any thoughts you may have that may help us present that more clearly.
I guess, hey, Glenn, I guess I do have one other question. Have we received any feedback or anybody reach out to us about the program? Any of our current ag customers?
Yeah, I'd look to Chris for that.
No.
None. And I think I'm fairly, after 6 years, you get to know the agricultural community. And a lot of them are seniors that own avocado groves. And they're just not so tuned into the outside world, I would say. My big concern about doing outreach to them is, social media isn't going to work. Even calling them on the phone doesn't always work. So I'm gonna have to outreach hard to a lot of them in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways to get in touch with them. And that's going to be.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I know it's probably not possible right now, and with COVID, but this seems like it would be an ideal situation to host like a workshop, not like a board workshop, but more like a staff lunch and learn or something like that for them, and invite those customers down to the office and
Yes.
have a little setup for them for those who are interested. I know we can't do it now, but
Yeah.
Depending on the timing and how quick things get back to normal, if ever,
Yeah.
maybe we'll be able to do something like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to do a multi-pronged approach.
Well, and hopefully during that 6-month transitional period from January 1st till June 30th, when these people have until June 30th of 2021 to show that they're on one of those lists. Hopefully COVID will relax by that point in time, and we can have kind of that last push to make sure that we're reaching out to all the agricultural interests.
Yeah.
Nice comment. Well, I hope that works out. But I also have a feeling the ones with the avocado groves are already fairly aware of it, if it's been a big concern to them, because I do know the Farm Bureau has done a lot, and a lot of outreach has been done by like Rainbow and Fallbrook and Valley Center, who do so much ag, to a lot of those people who would be included. It's I think it's a great thing. I'll be happy to see how the board responds. So are you ready to move on to decisions regarding certified non-participating agricultural water rates?
Yeah, I think we are. So Chris mentioned this program just real briefly in his presentation on the first item, and he'll go into a little bit greater depth here, and you'll see how they're related and why we may want to consider doing something different with the certified non-participating program than we have. So Chris, why don't you go ahead?
So I mentioned it briefly, the Certified Non-Participating Agricultural Water Rate Program. It was established during 2007 to 2009. There was a drought, and the district was basically petitioned by customers to provide an agricultural rate that wouldn't be subject to water use reductions in times of drought or supply cutbacks. So it was the Certified Non-Participating Agricultural Water Rate, or it doesn't have a good acronym, CNPAR, was originally referenced in Ordinance 165 back in 2009. And it had the same requirements as CWA's PCAR program, basically that you needed to be in the metropolitan program. That ordinance has been replaced over the years. And I think you'll remember I had a customer that wanted to get into that program, and the ordinance that we had was silent on the subject of certified non-participating. And there were kind of multiple presentations over it, but it just kind of eventually nothing much happened from it. But there's about 23 customers that we have that are in the certified non-participating program. And it, like the other program, like the PCAR program, it offers a reduced rate. And basically what it is these customers are flatlined at tier 2. So all of their water is tier 2. They get no tier 1, they get no tier 3. It just flatlines at tier 2. This can be a real boon for a residential person that has some ag on their property and has a little 3/4 inch or 5/8 inch meter, because there's not a whole lot of room in tier 1, less than 10 units or whatever. But if you're a customer with a big 2-inch or larger meter, doesn't really do you much good in that you never get any tier 1 water, which has a large capacity at a 2-inch size. And you probably you may never get to tier 3 anyway. So it's kind of an odd program. And why I want to bring it up now is we're doing a rate study right now, and we will need to address this this class of customers. And we have some options. We could keep it as it is, but we may want to come up with some consequences, just as the PCAR customers have a reduced volume. We would probably want to do something with these customers as well, either a drought rate or reduced volume. There should be consequences for the reduced rate. There currently are none. So we could keep it, but we would want to have some parameters on how you get it. We could copy the PCAR program and say, well, you still need to get on those lists. We could remove it entirely and just offer the County Water Authority's PCAR program. And the third option that the board may wish to consider is maybe transitioning to some type of an irrigation rate or an irrigation classification. I think we've had issues in the past with customers that are irrigating large grassy areas. And, you know, when they get into that tier 3, it can be burdensome. So that's just an option that could be considered, is to, you know, maybe change it away from an ag program to an irrigation program and renaming it and retitling it, and maybe coming up with some different or new parameters. But the time to address it is really during the rate study.
Yeah, and it's particularly important when you look at the cost of service principles. In order to provide a different rate structure, you have to be able to demonstrate that they get a different level of service. And Chris touched on that. So if people can get, if they have the same reliability and they get cheaper water, some people can make the argument that they're being subsidized. So I think Chris is right. I think trying to resolve this as part of the cost of service study is the right time to do it. And that may be, it may dovetail real well with the transition over to the PCAR program. So, but we just want to run that idea by you. And one approach is just to get rid of that certified non-participating, but the risk of it is then you may have a class of customers that doesn't qualify. They can't get on one of those 4 lists, and they used to benefit from cheaper agricultural water, and now they have no program. So, and I don't know how many people that might be. Of the 23, I don't know if Chris has any idea of how many people couldn't get on that one of those 4 lists.
It's hard for me to know.
Yeah. So that'd be part of the outreach as well as we go through this. So again, this is just kind of more informational, just to let you know, one of the things we'll be doing in the background is having the cost of service study consultant maybe give us their ideas on how this could be handled. Are there other programs we're not aware of, or how do we time it so that we give people a soft landing into the PCAR program?
Director Sinella, do you have any comments, questions, suggestions on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the need to address it. It does sound like this is the right time. Probably should have been addressed a long time ago. I'm a little still confused in both programs, PCAR and then ours. You know, you talk about, you know, them losing you know, their water during drought conditions, but doesn't everybody? I mean, I'm trying to think back, you know, a couple of years ago when the governor put down his 20% and it got pushed down to, you know, the water authority and then everybody else, us eventually. I mean, didn't everybody have to kind of cut back? I mean, so how are they different in these programs? If you know, is the threat that if they don't show, you know, period over period reduction of X amount, then they lose the cheaper rate? Or I mean, how are they different than me? You know, just being a regular residential customer.
Gina specifically, back in the day, Gina specifically was tracking the TSAR accounts, and if they went over their allotment, fines were levied on those customers.
Okay.
And that may be the way to address it.
Yeah, and Director Sinella, sometimes depending what the state does, the state may put out something that's an across the board thing. You all have to do this, or they may give some latitude to the jurisdiction. And if the latitude is given to the jurisdiction, then we may need some guidelines to figure out who takes the first haircut right? So if we have to take a 5% total cut of water supplies from the water authority, we don't have to make it an across the board thing. We can say, hey, we think there's 5,000 acre feet or 5% of agricultural water we can cut, and we're going to take it out of those transitional or now the permanent, the PCAR program. So not a lot of clarity right now because it would depend on how the governor went about making any drought declarations. But it's important that the people know that if you want to access the cheaper water, there's a risk. It's not just free. So you better be thoughtful about that going into it.
I'd like
Yeah.
to say, sorry, Mike, would you like to say more?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. I do think it's easy to get confused right now, the way it's set up with this certified non-participating. It's very confusing. Even as board members, I know we've had this presented several times, in the actuality of what the differences aren't real clear. I think Mike's got a good question here. And yes, it does sound like if you're going to tell someone you're paying less, you're getting less, then we also need to be sure that we honor what we've told them in both directions. The thing on the irrigation one, I'd love to see it go into our rate study. And I forgot, didn't we just start one, or we're starting one?
We already
Mike?
started it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did that board workshop, kind of gave the consultant good direction by the rankings that you did. So they're developing rate structures as we speak.
And at that time, we did not include anything regarding the certified non-participating?
Not specifically, no, but there was discussions about kind of like parity in rate classes. So they'll have enough latitude based on the feedback that the board gave. And when they come back with some alternative rate structures, the board can opt in, they can provide additional guidance at that point in time. So that wasn't your last opportunity in the rate study.
Okay, well, I would say I think that it's very important, especially if we're going to reach into the PSAR now, that we definitely look at what we have going and whether we want to do an irrigation rate. And if so, what are the benefits for and against? And I totally agree that if someone is limiting their tier, and certainly it sounds equitable, except you realize first tier is a lot smaller than third tier, which could go on for forever, for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's not equitable in that sense. I do understand where people are coming from, saying, I have a large piece of property. We get hit every time. I have 2.5 acres here. And when we deep water our trees, I mean, we have to do that or we'll lose them. And they're big old trees, and we always get smacked into the third tier on that. And we're at a 1-inch meter, I believe. So I can understand. I don't want someone to feel like, oh, I can just have an entire land of grass because I like it and I can get it at an irrigation rate. I think we need to be, what is it we're providing, why, and what are the consequences that are going to happen to you in tough situations. And that's what it's set up for. It's set up for those emergency situations. And that's when we definitely don't want people subsidizing others when we're all struggling. So I really feel it would be well worth a good look at this, and a better explanation perhaps of what exactly the irrigation rate would be. Chris, I don't quite understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we can bring that out. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I'm interested in Chris's suggestion about an irrigation rate. I'm a little bit concerned that it's going to be really difficult to define and police, and it could turn into, I think if the word ever got out there on the street that people with large pools all of a sudden might want to get into that program, right? So, so we'd have to, have, and then what? How much resources do we want to spend sending people out to look at yards and that kind of stuff? So
Exactly.
Well, as an irrigation rate, you would typically have it set up for landscape only. So it would typically never be a mixed use meter that was serving both the inside of the property and then the outside of the property. And
that's helpful.
yeah, I mean, that's typically how you would design it. And then maybe a flat tier 2 would be good as long as their meter is appropriately sized. And some of the situations that I've seen personally is sometimes the customer has a really small meter and we're not getting the ready to serve charge that we probably should be getting because they're pushing so much water through a very small meter. And the ready to serve charge offsets that because there's a larger fee based on the larger meter. So you do have some that are, taking advantage of a very small meter and a flat line tier 2.
Yeah, some of the biggest complaints and issues that we deal with customers is because of this very issue, the lack of an irrigation rate. So you get these HOAs, mostly HOAs that come in and say, hey, we're getting killed with this tier 3 water. And like Chris mentioned, some of them it's because their meter's too small. They get a very small allocation, relatively small allocation of tier 2. So they're used to just putting them into tier 3. If they were to pay to upsize their meter, they would get a larger tier 2 allocation, and it may benefit them in the long run, but the cost to upsize their meter is pretty significant. So then it's this big business case they have to look at. Do they want to spend a lot of money up front to hopefully save money on a monthly basis? So it's really become problematic for some of these HOAs, and a lot of them are maybe lower income too.
Yeah, the more we talk about this, the more I start thinking about it. And, I'm pretty compassionate when it comes to farmers and others that are trying to, run businesses and provide food for everybody, and a little less compassionate for, HOAs that want to, have a lush landscape driveway up into their neighborhood, right? So, because now I'm looking at it from this is good drinkable water that's being, dumped on, rose bushes. And so a lot to think about around this whole concept, but it sounds like our ordinance needs to be cleaned up anyways, and this is the right time to do it. So let's move it forward. But I gotta give a lot more thought about it. The more and more we talk about it, the less and less I think we need to have something other than the water authority's permanent solution for actual agriculture customers.
Okay.
Vice President Sanella, if I can just add in, I really like the idea of, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring this, is I want the board to think about it, and you don't have to make a decision today, but it's one of those things that needs a little rumination, and needs a little thought, and where do we want to go, and what do we want to do? And I just want to make sure I don't miss the opportunity to get this in front of the board to think about it.
Yep. No, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I think you hit it the nail right on the head. We need to learn a lot more about it so we can think about it and see what's really best for the greater good. So perfect. Are we ready to go on to the next item, or is there any more to be said?
I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, this is the Future Water Academy events and options for a virtual water academy. And are you leading that also, Chris?
Chris is going to take that one as well.
Did you want to give a preamble, Glenn, or anything?
No, you know what I would say, so go ahead.
Okay. So one of the items that's been impacted by COVID-19 is the district's annual Water Academy tour. You've all been on it, I'm certain. It gives customers a firsthand look at what we do, providing reliable, exceptional services. The customers come, they get to meet and greet with board members and staff, and we give them some coffee, and we present some items, and then we take them on those 3 rotational tours of water operations and collections in the garden, and we have lunch, and we give them all a chance to sit down and talk to staff members, the general manager, the board members, and then we board a bus and go up to the Twin Oaks plant and get to see the tanks up there, and then we drive down to Meadowlark and get a tour of Meadowlark. So it's a really special event, and but with COVID-19 being a concern, we had to cancel it. It's in the between the pipes that you're going to be approving, hopefully tomorrow, I believe. But I wanted to get some thoughts in front of the committee. Should we try and plan for a spring one if the state will let us have groups? Should we wait for fall of 2021? Or the third idea that I've been ruminating over is, did we try and have a virtual tour where we, just like we're doing right here, where we have a Zoom type meeting and show some of our videos and maybe have some staff give some PowerPoint presentations. And, we may try and incorporate some fun things, like we typically feed them a lunch, but because we can't really do that, hey, if you sit through the whole presentation, I'll work with Chick-fil-A and get some coupons and mail you a Chick-fil-A sandwich or whatever, a coupon for a Chick-fil-A sandwich. So I just want to have thoughts on the committee's ideas on what are we going to do, and what are your thoughts? I think I'm worried that our demographic for attending the Water Academy is typically seniors, and I'm just not sure a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting would necessarily attract them. Do they have the infrastructure and the internet to actively watch it? Another thought is maybe to let them do a self-guided, where we send them a kind of a self-guided tour, and you fill it out and answer some questions and mail it back to us. And after you've watched all these videos and answer some questions, then we could mail you the coupon for a free breakfast or free lunch or whatever. I just wanted to get the committee's thoughts.
If you don't
Mike,
mind, yeah.
I'd love for you. I know you have a lot of thoughts on social type of that, so go for it.
Yeah. Well, first off, I've been on the tour a couple times with our customers and our staff, and they're wonderful. And all of the feedback that I've heard, not only from those that are on the tour at the moment, but even when I'm out in the community, 3-4 months later, I have people that come up to me and talk to me about them, and so I think they're well liked by those who attend them, and I think they're very valuable for our customers to have a better understanding of what their rates go to, and everything that goes into providing both the water and the wastewater side of things. I don't, just off the top of my head, I don't know if a virtual format would really work. I'm kind of, my first thought, Chris, was that we just chalk it up to, hey, it's 2020. It's, another bummer part of the year because of COVID, and we skip it this year. And in trying to to rush back to it in the spring might not be the best option either. Maybe we start reevaluating it after the new year and over the first 3 months of the year, and see where we're at. And if things are looking like they're getting back to normal, then maybe we could shoot for a summertime tour. And I know it might be a little warmer, but we also might be able to get some more of like the Cal State students to attend and stuff like that if they're out of school. Maybe even some high schoolers, who knows? But I just think that it's, I just don't know. And the other thing I'll say is, your team has been doing a really good job with the videos and like Mar Reservoir. And I think you mentioned that you're going to have another one coming out here on our solar projects that we've been working on. And those are almost in of themselves a virtual tour, right? And so I just think there's nothing really replaces standing next to, a $40 million or 40 million gallon tank that's buried in the ground, and looking at it and, standing at ground level. You don't get the same appreciation on a video. So I just think that we'll keep doing the public relation videos that you guys are doing, and maybe think about some other topics that you could do along the way. But my first thought is that we just skip it this year, unfortunately.
Well, I tend to agree with Mike. I think he's said it very well, and that I'm not sure Zoom will get the actual response you want, both in the number of people or the feeling of understanding what our district is about. Yeah. But he's also right about your videos, and I was just thinking when you were talking that perhaps there's a way for those of you, who schedule the actual tours to take each of the segments of it, how you envision it, the introductions and what do you do at each one of the sites, what is it you're going for? And you actually could not only do a video for each sort of what I want to say segment, but I'm also wondering if you couldn't take specific segments and put them together and then offer them to HOAs or mobile home parks or community gatherings where people are invited. And yeah, we make it something special. If they all come, they get the Chick-fil-A coupon or they get the sandwich, whatever. But it's groups that are used to getting together, be smaller and more of them, but you're reaching a lot of those people. And some of them, like Mike is saying, I think we need to wait a year till we see where COVID goes, especially to get some of the younger active people. But I do think that the older people who are very cautious now and the heat's not doing them any favors could really benefit from that type of stuff being available. And it could be available on site, but it could also be available for someone just to present it via, a night at the movies at VWD.
Right.
And I think it would be wonderful, and it might also be an opportunity for all of the board members to, have a moment to speak and tell a little bit about themselves if they wanted to. So, and the GM and to kind of get into it. I think there's a lot of possibility there, but I don't think a Zoom meeting right now, it's what you're looking for. And who knows where we'll be next year. So those are just my thoughts, because all the videos you've done are so well done. Don't you think, Mike?
They're very good.
I do think HOAs and mobile home parks and various community groups, they all like to have something to present. So I think we could reach out in a sort of different way. And it would be more like, if you have us, here's a treat that you had us, not if you ever need someone, call us.
Yeah.
A little bit more proactive.
Right.
So does that help on number
No.
2 item?
It's certainly helpful. And if we did wait to resume the regular, I'll call it the regular Water Academy tour, to either the fall of 21, or as Director Sinella mentioned, maybe move it a little earlier in the off season where college students or other people could attend, we may actually have some pent up demand, right? Every year we have X number of people that want to do it. And maybe next year we'll have 2 times X because people couldn't do it this year and what would have otherwise gone in 21. So we could just maybe do a bigger event than we would have normally done because we're doing it only once every 2 years. Not that our plan is to go to every 2 years. This is just a temporary COVID accommodation. But I could see it being maybe a little bit bigger event if we resume in 21. So, but yeah, that was helpful. So yeah, we just didn't want the board to think we forgot about it. We clearly have been, Chris has been thinking a lot about it. We've talked about it. You hate to just take something away from people without maybe giving them something in exchange. But I just don't, like Chris mentioned, with the demographics that we have, I just don't think a virtual thing, there wouldn't be much for the amount of time and energy we'd put into it, we wouldn't get much attendance, I don't think.
That's my worry.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
I agree.
you're right. And you have too many opportunities for things not to go as planned. Whereas if you were to do videos, one of the videos, you make it say what and do what you want it to do when you show it before you show it. And that gives some control to that as well. As always, good thinking ahead of the game. And good response. I really liked your response, Mike. I'm not real good at the social stuff, so I don't always think of all those angles on it. But I do know the Academy is very, very popular. And I have people who remember the first Academy, and I was at the one, and they were like, I still remember that. I'm thinking that was a long time ago. Made a big impression on them. Do we have any other business?
We do not, but I just wanted to make a call. We have 2 outside people
Public
attending
speakers?
the meeting. I don't see either of them with their hand raised.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to let you know that we had people, and maybe I'm buying a little time to see if one of them wants to raise their hand to speak, and I don't see anything coming up. So.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of them. Appreciate that you're here. And if there's nothing else, I guess we can adjourn our meeting.
All right. Thank you very much.
May all have a wonderful night tonight. I hear cool weather's coming,
Oh, that's good.
hopefully.
Okay, good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thanks again.